Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining today's stream. Welcome Hunter, Corbin, Trading Desk, Keisha, Russ, Jorge, Mike, Jamie. Thank you guys so much for joining today. As always, if you're watching any specific stocks, just throw them up in the chat and we'll take a look at them. But so far this morning, Boeing is the stock to watch. They are exploding up in pre-market on great earnings. They had great revenue, and I think that I read this is like the first time they profited in like 6 quarters or something like that. So they're definitely running up. They have a lot of momentum, and I actually really like this stock for the long term. Welcome Alex, Mike, David. Good morning. And Tom, what stocks are you watching?
Yeah, Boeing's a really key stock for me. I really like them. I'm really watching Apple and Microsoft after those earnings last night. Apple's actually coming down off that 150 resistance, and it looks like a pretty decent play to the downside. And we're even heading down towards into open. So definitely have your eyes out for Apple to possibly move down. I know Microsoft moved down a lot and then actually ripped right back up. So we're going to have to see if they can continue. If they can break out above 292, I think they'll have a pretty decent run, but it looks like they're actually going down towards open as well. But those two stocks are really interesting to me, especially since they had earnings yesterday. And I'm just really curious to see how they're going to move because they both kind of beat on their EPS, but both stocks kind of went down a little bit. I'm glad to see that Microsoft recovered back, but in the end, I'm just really curious to see how those two stocks do today.
For sure. So welcome B, Sean, Alex, and Vicky to the stream. We have B saying, good morning, guys. Have you guys heard about the China news? So there's been a lot of China news. I'm not sure which article specifically you're referring to, but China stocks are popping back up. And, these ones are all over the place, Tom. Like BABA is trending up in pre-market, and a lot of other ones are too. So let us know what article you're referring to. Then we have Hunter saying, Boeing is flying better than their planes. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. But yeah, it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, it is very well. I love to see this type of momentum, especially out of a key stock like Boeing. I know a lot of people have been looking at buying it down here, and it's honestly, it moved off of a key long-term trend line at the bottom. It hit right off of that, went right to the upside, and I'm really glad to see it move off those type of technicals. Look like we're opening right at the 100 SMA on Boeing at open. It looks like we are heading down, though, unfortunately. I'm not surprised to see this happening, considering that we're up 5%, though. I would not expect to see Boeing have a big, 10% day or anything, but looks like the SPY is catching green at open, so we might be heading up back towards those highs again.
We'll see. I mean, Tom, you know how Powell days are. They're super choppy. I remember, I believe it was the last one. It was all over the place, so we're in for a wild ride, but so far it looks like Disney is trending, well, it was trending up pretty well 2 seconds ago. It's down a little bit right now. mRNA is selling off a little bit. Palantir is trending up nicely. So yeah, I mean, the morning, like I said, it's going to be pretty volatile until we have the press conference, which isn't until pretty close to the market closing.
Yeah, so we're actually pretty far away, so we might not see that type of downwards movement until then, unfortunately. But man, Palantir is actually looking really hot right now to me. I really like this setup. It looks like a pretty good setup right now at open. It's up above the 1,000 and the 100 SMA on the 1 minute, and it looks really good to me just eyeing it up. There is a resistance at $22, which we're getting close to, but man, Palantir is a pretty good stock so far today at open.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have Jorge saying TDOC, huge dip after earnings. So, yeah, I saw this. It's getting smacked around. It's down around 11% today. It's selling off pretty bad. And, I was also eyeing this one for maybe selling some puts on. Premium will rise. Even though Ivy fell a little bit, the premiums on the options are pretty good. So, yeah, that one's getting smacked. Welcome, Spacely. He says, top of the morning. There we go. Spacely, what stocks are you watching today? Let us know. And then let's see. So, yeah, I mean, that's the main movement right now. Looks like Boeing is doing pretty good. Some of these weekly calls on Boeing are up over 400%.
Wow, yeah, that's a huge rise out of those calls. And you know what else is actually doing hot today, Mike, is the marijuana sector.
Oh,
Somehow we have CGC here up 4%. We have LVS up, we have ACB up. LVS is up though too. But man, all these marijuana stocks are really ripping up after they've honestly had a really bad past couple weeks. They've been like breaking below supports and just continuing to sell off. So I'm glad to see them somewhat coming back today. That's a decent thing to see. And even DraftKings is green today, which is a good sign. So DraftKings is actually looking really hot today at open, passing up above $49. And I think we might head up towards that 50 resistance today. And DraftKings has honestly been consolidating for like the past couple weeks. And if we could see a good breakout above 50, I think we might see a pretty good run out of DraftKings.
You know it. So, and while we're on the topic of like DraftKings, let's take a look at Penn. They're doing pretty well this morning. Awesome candle to start the day. They're up around 2.5%.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very similar to DraftKings on the 1 minute. It almost looks even stronger. And they had that huge resistance up there around $74. But man, this is also a good runner. And while these two stocks are up right now, they might not be the best for the rest of the day today, but especially like heading for tomorrow and for the next couple of days, definitely have them on your radar. We've been eyeing up Penn for a long time. It hit off this bottom support around 65 and it's just been going up ever since. So I'm pretty much just still eyeing it up. If we can see it pass above that upper resistance today around 74, we might see a pretty good move.
How about these marijuana stocks, though, Tom? I know you just brought it up, but, they're popping. We got to give them some more attention. Tilray's up, 16%, now 17%. It's popping up, tons of volumes coming in, and they're getting really close to resistance right at 15.
Yeah, this is actually really good for these stocks. I'm glad to see this happening. Like I said, they've been getting beaten down for a while now. And, Tilray, like you said, heading right up towards that $15 resistance, that's going to be big. They had earnings this morning, and it looks like the earnings went pretty well. They had a 0.18 EPS. It doesn't say the estimates or anything. I haven't looked into it too much, but man, they're really rocketing up. I wonder if CGC or anyone else had earnings. No, it looks like they're just kind of following Tilray, but I will definitely have to see how those kind of went. Yeah, ACB did not report either, but man, I will say the MJ ETF is starting to look really good. And honestly, like Tilray has been flying up off of its lows, but the ETF has been moving more slow and steadily. There's a pretty solid double bottom around $17. You could pick it up right now at 18, which is still pretty low. And especially with Tilray and all these other stocks starting to go up, I think that this is priced pretty low comparatively. Like we're seeing CGC move up 5 to 6%. Of course, MJ is not, CGC or ACB or anything, but they are up 3%. But it does look like, though, that they're pretty far away from their highs, similar to how those stocks have been moving. So I honestly really like it. It looks like it has a good double bottom, and the risk reward ratio is not too bad if you cut it right below 17.
Alrighty, so Tom, let's take a look at Apple. They are having a double bottom right now from their lows in after hours yesterday. They had a horrible open so far. They're down around 2.5%. And if I look at the Apple, give me 1 second. If I look at the Apple options chain for the weeklies, there was a huge IV crush. Basically, all of the calls are in the red. Some puts are green, but only if they're in the money. But for the most part, most of them are struggling on today's weekly options chain for Apple. What do you see with this one? Like, I know we had that FOMC meeting later today, but I know tech stocks are still at some pretty high levels, and even though Apple reported amazing earnings, they're selling off pretty hard.
Yeah, and personally, I'm going to have to say it looks like they're going to continue to go to the downside. Now, there is a huge support, I should say, around $142. That looks like a very big level. I think that they might hit around here and then maybe stay up, but it just depends. Personally, I think that the movement does not look very good. Looks like it will end up going down to me. I don't like how it double topped at 150, like right on the dot. Like it didn't go to 151 or 152 or 149. It hit right off of 150, which shows I think that there's going to be a pretty big wall there. And I think that especially like over the next month or two, we might have a lot of trouble pushing up through that high. And especially like with the FOMC coming up, there's just a lot of weird factors going on. If the FOMC goes well, I think Apple could end up going up. But as of right now, with the earnings and the way Apple looks off of these technicals, especially off that 150 resistance, I would say it looks like it's heading down. And we are finally actually below that 1,000 SMA on the 15-minute chart. And we actually have not been below that on Apple for like a few weeks to a month or two now.
Tom, DraftKings is popping. We're testing that $50 resistance.
Wow, I cannot believe we're all the way up to 50 already. Man, that's kind of insane. Yeah, it looks like we hit right off of that again and came down. Looks like that 50 resistance is going to hold up again for right now. But man, that's a lot of momentum. And that was pretty quick, Mike. We've only been open about 7 minutes, and this stock's already testing that high. So definitely look at this one today. If we can pass 50, I think we'll see a pretty good move. And just given the way this momentum's been, we might consolidate for the next like 15 to 30 minutes before trying to, push back up through 50 again. But I think that we will finally see at least a try to push back up through there. I don't think that we'll just, crash and burn for the rest of the day.
Alrighty, so we have Daniel saying Tilray's popping. Yeah, it's definitely popping. It looks pretty good. Now it's up almost 18%. These MJ stocks are definitely runners, so keep your eyes on them. We have, let's see, Russ saying LCID opened up pretty good. Yeah, it's not looking bad. I was just looking at it. It's up around 2.5% today. It's trying to bounce off the support around 25.25. You can say $25.25. The next major resistance I see is we have a little bit of resistance at 26.25, and then I would say more around like 26.50. And if we break that right around that $27 area.
Yeah, I think 27 is going to be pretty big, but I honestly like this stock. I think it's a pretty good longer term hold. I'm not saying that their fundamentals are going to be great or anything, but just given the sector that they're in, they have a pretty high potential to pop off. And I think that, Lucid, I think that they'll end up being pretty decent in the longer run. We'll just have to see how that production ends up going. But obviously, it's a very speculative stock. For me, it's more of a longer term play, but I think it's even good in the short term. It looks like as long as we can hold that 25 support, it looks pretty good. But keep in mind, there hasn't been too much data on the new ticker yet. So I still want to see a little bit of movement. But as long as we continue to see pops like we saw today at Open, it'll be pretty good.
All right. And then we have Vicky asking about, Lyft and Uber. Hold on one second. All right, we have Vicky asking about Lyft and Uber. So let's take a look. LYFT. It is looking pretty good so far. It's up around 2% right now. They do have earnings pretty soon on August 3rd. I think it looks decent for a dip buy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. It looks like a pretty good recovery play. I should say it looks like that $50 support looks really good in the shorter term, and we've actually held that. So I think it looks like a pretty good play. Looks like we're starting to turn back up right now. And I would say that we could pretty safely retest maybe that $56 resistance from a couple days ago. I think that would be pretty attainable and pretty safe over the next day or two. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to fly up right now up to 56, but definitely like later today and heading into tomorrow, I could see it happening.
Yeah, and then Uber's a pretty similar setup. The chart looks relatively the same. But yeah, I still think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, Uber's passing through that 1,000 SMA on the 1 minute and holding the 100. So it looks like a very good play today, especially at Open. Like I could see it possibly hitting like 46.50 pretty safely today. Look for 46.50 as a resistance on Uber. But honestly, like if they both start flying up, we might see that whole sector just follow along with each other and just trade like in tangent.
All right. And then we have, let's see, Corbin saying, Morning, Mike and Tom. How does GLD look? It's competing with Bitcoin. All right, GLD, it's not bad. It's just not really doing anything. Depending on what Powell says, that can really move gold today. So it depends on what he says with, his take on inflation and all that stuff. So I don't think it looks bad to the upside. I'm bullish on it like over like the next couple of years. But besides that, like in the short term, it's just not really moving.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about Bitcoin and gold, and I personally don't see how they're too correlated. To me, it seems like gold is more of like a longer term, like slow and steady type of play. Bitcoin is obviously like a really volatile, almost not like a super long term play, but they're more of like a medium term to shorter term play, of course, with the volatility there. And obviously, you can buy and hold Bitcoin forever, like you can gold. But gold's only going to go up. If back up to highs, you're seeing like a like a 30% rise, maybe 25. With gold, with Bitcoin, you're going to see like 100 or 200% rise. So definitely like two different things. I would personally say that they're not competing, but I think gold could do pretty well with the inflation news coming out. But personally, it's been up and down for gold. We've seen gold just going flat almost for like the past couple months. And everybody's been talking about inflation going up. So if inflation goes up, I think gold will end up going up as people kind of invest back into gold. But for right now, I think that a lot of people are still staying away.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I do think some people are, definitely transitioning into Bitcoin for like an inflation hedge. And I know that I don't remember the exact institution. It may have been like Morgan Stanley or Goldman, but they like recommended like having like Bitcoin for like a very small percentage of their like high net worth clients' portfolio. So either way, there's just like a lot of factors that go into both of these, like I guess you can say securities, Bitcoin and gold. Obviously, with Bitcoin, when you have news about, Elon accepting it for Tesla or, whatever crazy news like China banning it, obviously that brings in a ton of volatility. So, they have their pros and cons, and I'm just excited to see how both of these move over the next couple years.
Yeah, hopefully for the longer term, they both end up doing decent. I know gold's supposed to go up on its own because obviously it's just a commodity that is always depleting itself. And Bitcoin, of course, is always meant to go up because there's only like, a certain amount of Bitcoins that can be mined. So it's always, kind of like it's interesting because Bitcoin is kind of like gold in that sense. If you think about it, there's only a certain amount that can be mined. And it's honestly the same way with gold. So like it's almost it's pretty similar, but obviously they're totally different. Like Mike said, they'll both have their own catalyst, but over the next couple of years, I could see both of them going up, to be honest, especially with the way electronics have been going and the way like gold is used in like electronics. And obviously like, GPUs are used to mine Bitcoin, and gold and silver go into those GPUs when they're made. So that it seems like it could honestly work out almost like they could almost work out well together, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then we have Alex saying, can you look at BMY still holding calls? So let's take a look. BMY, I was just looking at it, and it looks pretty good. It's up over 1% right now. Obviously in hindsight, I wish I held it, but earnings are always 50-50. It looks pretty good. A lot of other like health stocks are popping up. So it looks good. The next major resistance to watch out for is that high from a couple days ago, right around $68.50. But if it breaks that, this thing can pop up to, might even get close to 70.
Yeah, I think that we could get really close to 70, if not hit that, if we pop up through there. That's a huge resistance, though. It's been on the chart for a few years, but with these earnings going well, I think that we could definitely see another move back up through there. It's just going to depend on how long it's going to take. I think it looks like it could happen in the next couple days, but I think it was still smart to possibly cut that though, Mike, especially with the earnings. And like we saw with Apple, some people that even bought puts ended up losing just because the IV went ballistic.
All right. And then let's see, we have Spacely saying, I'm swinging SPRT right now. Okay, so that's awesome. It's up like 13%. Spacely said, looking at this SPCE 31 strike call for July 30th. A weekly, Tom. Those weeklies are brutal.
Man, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, so he said the 31 strike call. If it pops up for him, this could be like a 400% winner, but, those weeklies are brutal with that time decay. So, yeah, always trust your gut no matter what, but generally speaking, it's always good to get more time. And then Spacely goes, come on, guys, hit that like button. It's more than 13 of us in here. Yeah, guys, if you guys hit the like button, it would really help us out. It takes like 2 seconds, and Tom and I really, really appreciate it. Then we have Jorge saying, Enphase also a bit down today after earnings, but recovered quite a bit following after-hours sell-off. All right, let's take a look. ENPH. So, yeah, it is selling off a little bit right now. I like this company for the long term, and if they do continue to fall, I will sell puts on them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, actually, selling puts on Enphase if they keep falling, especially if you could get them around like the 150 support or somewhere even lower than that. I think that would be awesome. But Enphase does look like it's going to go bearish though in the shorter term, so that does scare me. But in the end, I think Enphase is going to be a great stock. But Mike, these marijuana stocks are still going up. We have CGC up 7% now. We have ACB up 6%. Tilray leading the pack 23% now to the upside. This is getting absolutely insane with some of these. And Tilray is getting right up to that $16 resistance that I've had on my chart for quite a while. So I would think that they would hit here and stop. But man, this is some insane momentum. And I know that I looked it up. They beat on their EPS and they beat on their sales from last year. But man, in the end, I mean, this is just such a parabolic move. I don't know what to think. I think that a lot of investors might be getting in right now. Also, with the news how Schumer came out and tried to get that marijuana bill into the Senate, this is just getting parabolic.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy. It is exploding. 24% in a day, or I don't even want to say a day, in what, like a couple hours? This is crazy. And these MJ stocks, they have that explosive potential. So, I know that we've been watching them for so long, Tom, and they kept trying to run up. But, volume's flowing, attention's going to these MJ stocks. They had decent earnings, and who knows? The last time we saw a crazy run up with Tilray, it went from like 20 all the way up to like almost 70.
Yeah, it did. And man, we could see another move like that, especially with like this Senate news and everything like that going on. I think that it could be a pretty good play for the shorter term. I'm kind of upset because I was going to grab some Tilray. Obviously, now I'm a little hesitant now that it rose 23% today, but I was going to grab it a couple weeks ago whenever it was around $13 or $14. Now we're sitting all the way up at 16, so that's a pretty big rise. I ended up grabbing just a little bit of shares of CANN, like a really small penny stock, hoping that this would go up with that type of news too. They get pretty parabolic, but man, Tilray looked like the play to go with. Those earnings ended up being so good, and their EPS was actually positive, which is a great sign. In the past, they've had a negative earnings every time they report, and this time we went back to positive. So looks like they're actually growing pretty well.
Yeah, DraftKings is trying to break, Tom. It just broke above 50, but it's coming back down now. It's really trying.
Man, it did. Wow. Yeah. Ran up to $50.12. Looks like I think we might see another run. Hopefully we can break up through 50. I think it looks like it consolidated there so much that we would have to break up just looking at the way it's looking right now. And man, we better see a good move today out of DraftKings. We're already up 2.5%, but I'd like to really see us break that level. And if we could get a good run over the next maybe like few days up towards $55, that would be a really good move for DraftKings. And, there's a lot of stuff. I know that the NBA finals just went on for DraftKings, but in the end, the stock movement's moving very well right now. And I'm just really happy to see this. I know that it's been one of our favorite stocks, and we've been eyeing it up for a long time. And it's just been unfortunate. What's that company? Hindenburg, Mike?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Hindenburg put out that crappy article a couple weeks ago and sent the stock down. So definitely, just keep it out and keep your eye on it in the short term. I think DraftKings will recover up very nicely, and I do think that article had a little bit of an impact for those past couple months. But I think for now, it looks like it's finally out of that downward stage, and it actually held that $40 support after that report was said very, very well. So I'm glad to see that it's moving back up.
Good to hear. All right, so we have Daniel saying, what do you all think about ASTR launches should be starting near the end of the summer and are expected to go to 12 launches per month by the end of the year? So honestly, I haven't been following it too much. Anything with space, it's very catalyst driven, as we saw with SPCE. But, the charts look terrible. But obviously, if they have great news come out or a successful test flight, that can be a total game changer for it. So it'll be on my radar, and I'll just be on the lookout for those flights.
Yeah, those flights should really make it move. I think that'll be the main thing for it. Obviously, the best time to play it'll probably be the time heading up into those flights. Maybe look at it for like a few days before. I know SPCE rose a couple days before their final flight. So hopefully we see a good rise like that out of ASTR if theirs are successful. I will say, though, I like SPCE a lot off this $30 support. I think with the way it pulled back down to there, it looks very nice. I know they had that huge share offering, and from here on out, I know Elon Musk ended up buying a ticket. So I know that they will have a lot of good news coming out in the future too, but this $30 support does look pretty good here. And ASTR, I really think that it has a lot of potential to it, but I just think the chart setup is just not as good as SPCE just for right now. But as soon as they get those test flights going, it could definitely change.
All right, we have Hunter saying Apple falling on earnings makes a little double top at their highs. That's a good point. Yeah, 100%. It's definitely double topping, especially in the daily chart. Right around, you could say that 150 area. And then he said, you might have said that, but my coffee machine was going. So yeah, I mean, it's trying to come back now. But yeah, it's looking a little rough overall. Russ saying SNDL looks good as well. Yeah, they're popping up with Tilray. Mike is saying, take a look at MAT. It looks cheap. All right, let's take a look. MAT. Let's see. Wow, they're doing pretty good. Oh, actually, hold on. Oops, wrong thing. MAT. Yeah, they are doing pretty good. I mean, they're up a little bit today. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this, Tom?
Yeah, MAT. I mean, did you say MAT?
Yes, MAT.
Yeah, Mattel, they had those earnings yesterday. They kind of popped up, then they popped back down. They're up 0.5%. It's personally not my favorite play. I know that they're more of like a slow and steady stock for the longer term. I think they'll be pretty good in the long run, but for the short term, definitely be careful with them. And I will say it took them quite a long time, since 2018, they've pretty much traded between like $22 and $10. So just keep that in mind too. We're at like the top of that range. Just be a little careful with them, but hopefully they can start to do better for the longer term traders. I think that this is definitely more of a long term play than a shorter term one.
All right, and then we have Santiago saying SPY puts are printing. How's it looking intraday?
Honestly, pretty good. We're actually down below the 1,000 SMA on the 1 minute. Looks like we might see some more downwards momentum if it can come into the market. But man, there's that big support at like 438. Looks like we're hovering right around that too. I think we could see some more downwards momentum today, though. Powell's talking later on, especially heading up into when he talks. I think we'll see some downwards movement. But once he starts talking, though, he could obviously change it and make the market go back up. So be a little careful if you're holding stuff like that at the end of the day today. But I think that we could definitely see these puts work out, especially if we fall below 438.
All right, and then we have B saying, could China stocks like BABA be good to the upside for the short term? Yeah, I mean, they definitely can be if you're willing to hold through the China risk lately. They can come out with news at any time. I know that they had good news come out lately with trying to like calm everything down, but understand that China has done very crazy things in the past, and they're pretty unpredictable. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely can be. BABA is a pretty good company at some pretty good levels, just as long as it's just a matter of if you are willing to have that China risk.
Yeah, and I think that this risk will eventually go away, and I think that some of the better companies might make it through, but some of these smaller companies like Didi, for example, hopefully they can actually make it because, they just IPO'd. Now they're falling down. China said that they could possibly, delist Didi actually. So there's a lot of weird factors that could go on with China, like Mike said. So just be a little careful with that type of situation. And I would say personally, it's always good to have a little bit of those types of stocks in your portfolio. Like we were talking about earlier with gold, it's almost like it's good to have a very small percentage of like BABA or like JD or something like that in there, but don't overload your portfolio with these China stocks, of course.
All right, and then we have Jay saying, could you check QS? How's it looking?
I think it looks pretty decent, actually. There's a big support around like $20, $21 that QuantumScape hit off of. Looks like we might be heading back to the upside now. Today was a pretty good move. They had those earnings in after hours, and they didn't really move too much in after hours, but today it opened, looks really solid. I'm glad to see it popping up like this, and I think that QuantumScape could do pretty good. Like I said, there's that pretty good support down there around $21, and I think we might see a pretty good run for the next couple weeks.
Alrighty, and then Palantir is looking pretty good. Like I'm looking at it intraday, it's breaking above resistance at 22.30, and it's just looking pretty good overall. We're trying to retest that $22 and like 75-cent area.
Yeah, I love this setup too. Off of that another $21 support. That's weird, but that's weird. Just happened to be back to back at 21. But I really like Palantir too. The setup intraday looks solid. It's passing through that 1,000 SMA on the 15-minute, which is pretty good. It's also just holding up above all the other SMAs and the good supports. It's holding up above 21. Now we're holding up above 22, which is pretty nice. We flew right through that. It opened today and just continued up. So that's a great sign. I think Palantir could definitely do well for the next few trading days. It looks really good, I think. And a lot of people, I think, have been eyeing this one up as it's been falling down off of that resistance around 2750.
All righty. And then let's see. Then we have Jorge saying CLOV still playing with our feelings. Yeah, that one's been all over the place. Like, it looked so good last week and just kind of fell off the board. They're still lingering right around that $8 support, so hopefully it pops up, but it's been all over the place. And then we have I'm Fierce saying, Palantir had a great move so far. Just got out of the bot trade I was holding for a small profit. Go Palantir. There we go. So, yeah, Palantir's moving pretty well. And then we have Matthew asking about the DAX. So let's take a look. DAX, on the daily chart, it has been kind of selling off over the past month or so. It had highs around like $35.40, and now it's lingering around 33. Like, honestly, I'm not too familiar with like the German stocks, but just off a technical standpoint, it doesn't look the best.
Yeah, it doesn't look the best to me either, the DAX. I think it could end up doing well, though, like longer run, but it almost reminds me of like the Dow or something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, we're not experts on German stocks, but that's just a quick little technical analysis for you.
Yeah, hopefully Mercedes-Benz does well for him.
Hopefully. And then we have Maine saying, what's wrong with Penn? Up 1 minute and go down the rest of the day. Let's see. So Penn is still in like a longer term downtrend. In many ways, it reminds me of the Zoom setup from, what was that, like 2 months ago? Long story short, with the Zoom play, it was downtrending for forever. And when stocks are just like in that pattern, there's just like a lot of like overall selling pressure with them. So with Penn, they just need like a clear breakout or, a nice catalyst to change that trend, and they should be good. I see that they have earnings coming up sometime or pretty soon. So if they have good earnings, that can be a driving force into that. But there's just a lot of variables, when what can make a stock pop, obviously.
Yeah, and I hope that they do well. That was honestly really good to see him popping up earlier this morning. Unfortunately, they hit right off that 74 resistance that we were talking about and went right down. So, of course, that resistance had to hold up, but I think that we could still see some more good movement. I wonder if DraftKings kind of fell back down too. It looks like DraftKings actually broke their upper resistance. So hopefully that can kind of pull Penn back to the upside.
For sure. All right, and then let's see. We have A saying just opened a 195 to 160 vertical put on NVIDIA expiring in September. I like the setup. 195 to 160 for September. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think that should work very well for you. Of course, if some bad news comes out with Powell, that can just be like a nice little boost in the short term.
Yeah, I think that could obviously boost that stock. It looks like the SPY is down a little bit right now. So if Powell comes out and does something weird, man, and sends the SPY down, anything could happen.
You know it. And then we have Vicky asking about AMAT and FUBO. What do you think?
Yeah, Applied Materials. I actually think AMAT could be pretty good for the longer term, but shorter term, it looks like it's hitting a huge resistance at $140. There's that upper one at 146, but 140 has been hit like a ton, and it went down right around here. So I'd be really careful with it, especially towards the end of this week, of course. It looks like we're getting a little closer back up to that level again. Maybe we'll finally break through it, but FUBO, I think, is pretty decent for the longer term. Looking at like the max daily, it reminds me of like a Palantir play or something similar to that. And I think it will end up going up over the next couple weeks.
Alrighty. And then we have Trading Desk saying just cleared 30% on AMD, bottom reversal, green. There we go, Trading Desk. Awesome job. Looks like AMD had a pretty solid reversal. So great job there. Keep up the great work. And then we have Keisha saying, what's your next resistance for GOOGL? So Well, there is none. They're breaking all-time highs. So unfortunately, there's no major resistance. But if we look like intraday, including the earnings release, you can say that all-time high of $2,775.
Yeah, 27.75 seems like the way to go with this one. It honestly looks like a pretty good intraday setup though, like it might start popping back, but this stock is going to be very volatile following those earnings. But I will say if you guys want to read a good earnings report, go read Google's earnings from yesterday. It was absolutely insane. They have so many different revenue streams like YouTube ads, they have all types of stuff, ad revenue on websites, just trafficking, totally different things. Go check it out. Their earnings beat by a ton. They posted a 27.26 EPS. I cannot believe what I was reading, but definitely one of their better EPSs to date, beating out their 26.29 from last time. So I'm really glad to see them doing that well.
Alrighty, and then we have B saying, I'm off to work, guys. Appreciate what you guys do. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for the positive words and great questions. And then we have Sean saying, workhorse thoughts for a month or two, was assigned shares a few weeks back, been selling calls. So let's take a look at it. I haven't looked at this one in a while. It's up a little bit today. I think it looks good overall. Obviously, good catalysts out of the EV sector can really help it out. And I see that they have earnings pretty soon, but it sounds like you were just running the wheel on it, which is a pretty solid strategy. I'm not sure what your cost basis is, but I like the setup.
Yeah, and I hope Workhorse can start to really rock it back up. I know that it had a lot of momentum in the past, and it's in a good sector. So it almost reminds me of like CCIV, or now it's LCID, but it reminds me of like a Lucid play, like hopefully these companies that are like Workhorse, Lucid, and a couple others can start to get going. And I think that they could, but who knows? You might have to hold it for quite a long time before you see some upside potential.
All right, and then, so that's the questions right now. Looks like AMC is breaking their lows right now. They're down around 5%, and they're getting pretty close to that $35 support.
Yeah, and what's weird is that CLOB is actually rising, even though AMC is going down, which is interesting. AMC's been failing to break this 1,000 SMA, hit actually off of it perfectly in pre-market yesterday, and then went right down. Not a good sign for the shorter term. They got that big support at like 33, or you could say like 31.50. So definitely look out for that over the next couple days.
Yeah, Hunter is completely surprised by this AMC movement. He said, who could have seen that coming? I know, Hunter. And then we have Ben saying, what are your ideas on gold? So GOLD, I'm not sure if you're referring to Barrick Gold or like GLD, but I like them for like the next couple years or so. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the stream. Depending on what Powell says today, that can influence, gold, the markets, Bitcoin, and a lot of other commodities, you can say. But really, there's no major opinion besides I'm just bullish for like the next couple years.
I think that the stock GOLD, like Barrick Gold, actually looks like it has a pretty good double bottom here around $20.30. I think this looks like a pretty solid setup actually in the short term. Looks like we might see a little bit of like a gap fill here, maybe up to like, 22.50 or somewhere close to that. If you look at like the 90-day, 15-minute chart, it actually has been consolidating at these lows for quite a while. And it looks like we're starting to see a little bit of a breakout. So maybe they did actually mean Barrick Gold, because GOLD's chart looks a lot more enticing to me than GLD's chart does.
Yeah. All right. And then, that's that. I'm just looking at a couple different scanners right now. Looks like Chewy is popping up a little bit. CHWY. Palantir is looking good. DraftKings is looking good. AppV's recovering nicely from the disastrous day it had yesterday.
Yeah, AbbVie got destroyed. I'm surprised to see that they got killed that bad, but hopefully they can actually go back up. That's a pretty good recovery so far. They only need to go up a couple more points up to $90. So I think that we could see it happen, but maybe it'll have to happen over the next couple days. But don't be surprised if we see more downwards movement. That was a pretty bad move there. They still have earnings coming up too. Keep in mind that AbbVie goes through these big swings up and then they swing down for a while. Then they swing back up. It's just kind of how their stock has always gone. I would definitely look for it, though, to recover back there's a pretty big support around $80.
All right. Snap's not looking bad either. I don't know if you saw that one.
What was the ticker?
Snap.
Oh, Snap. Yeah, Snap was doing really good with those earnings a couple days ago. Honestly, killed it. They were moving very, very well. Then they just consolidated down. So I'm glad to see them going back up. I think that they could go up and possibly retest that $79, maybe that $80 high up there. I think it looks like a pretty solid play today. And looking at it on the 1 minute, it's passing above that 1,000 SMA and passing above the $75 resistance. So I think we could see a pretty good move out of this one today. We're only up 1.9%. Sometimes this stock has pretty big moves.
All right. And then we have Jorge saying TDOC also seems to be recovering quite nicely. Actually recovered about 7% for the day at the moment. So yeah, it had a pretty awesome recovery so far. A lot of buyers are stepping in.
Yeah, they are actually. TDOC has been a really big, really highly talked about stock, very popular over the past year. And I will say it's moving very good off this bottom support around 130. I think that was a great level to buy off of. And I'm glad to see it popping up like this today, right off of that bottom. I think it shows that 130 is going to hold up pretty well. And, we're seeing a lot of stocks like double bottom lately and start to go up. And I think Teladoc could definitely be thrown into that category, especially with more of like this Delta variant coming out and everything. I think Teladoc will obviously do well since it's like a doctor from home deal. They did very well during COVID, almost like how Peloton does better whenever COVID is getting worse. So like I could see Teladoc possibly going up this winter.
All right. And then Max said Neo looks good for this morning. Yeah, it's not looking bad. It's up around 4% today, and it's recovering pretty well right now. Really watching that resistance of like $41.50 for a potential break.
Yep, and they are a China stock, so just keep that in mind. Be a little careful with them because of that, but I really like the hold of the $40 area. I think that looks really solid, Mike. This is one of my favorite stocks for the longer term, actually. And man, I think that with it bouncing right there, we could start to see some pretty good moves. And I would say if you're bullish on NIO or you want it for the longer term, selling puts right now might be a really good way to go. The IV is up a little bit, and I think that it definitely could be a pretty good play for the shorter term.
What do you think about DraftKings, Tom?
Man, I saw that they were starting to fly up through that 50 resistance up to $50.50, moving very well. I'm really glad to see them breaking this. They've been trying to break out of here for the past like couple weeks, and man, I'm really happy. DraftKings is running up. I think we might see it hit 55 later on this week or something like that, but this is honestly getting to be a pretty good move today. We might not be able to get through $50.50, but man, the break over $50 was so key, and I'm really happy to see that for the rest of the week. I think that this could drive a lot more buyers into this stock, and we might finally see that type of momentum that we've been waiting for.
I would love to see it hit 55. I mean, that's like a 10% pop. Hopefully it continues up. When's their earnings date? Real quick. Let me see. I'm curious.
Looks like on August 6th.
Okay, so it's pretty soon. So it's looking pretty good. The uptrend is there. Momentum's there. It's definitely on my radar. I love the company for the long term, and hopefully they report some pretty awesome earnings.
Yeah, I hope so. And hopefully they can hit that resistance up there at 55. Like I said, like you said, though, that's a pretty big move, 10%. So I think it could happen, though, over like the next week. Sometimes DraftKings has those pretty big runs, and we've seen it in the past break out above 50 and run right up to 55 over 2 days. So I think we could possibly see it again.
True that. And then let's see what else is moving. Looks like Enphase is down the most on my watch list today, around 3.5%. Baidu is up the most, around just under 5%. And then Boeing is up too, but it looks like they're giving off some of their gains.
Yeah, I'm glad to actually see that with Boeing because I'd love to get into them for the longer term. If they could pull back down to like, just below 230 or like 225, I think I'd end up grabbing some shares. I really like Boeing, and I wish I would have got in before these earnings came out, of course. But in the end, they were moving off a really good long-term trend line down there around that $200 support. That would have been the best time to get in. Everybody's been really waiting for Boeing, and I think that they could definitely start doing better. A lot of stuff has been going on with their planes like the past couple of years. Of course, that stuff causes some downwards momentum. COVID was mixed in there as well, making it even worse, of course. But I think that Boeing will still do very well. I've heard China is like testing their planes again. Those 737 Maxes might come back out, and a lot of them are actually being used again now that they've had certain modifications and stuff. So hopefully people start ordering Boeing planes again. I've seen a few orders coming through over the past couple months. I know that the Royal Air Force bought some jets from them as well as a couple other companies. So definitely keep your eye out. I don't know who it was. It was like American or Southwest or somebody, but I think Boeing will do very, very well for the longer term. I think anything under, 250 a share could be pretty good, but really try to target somewhere around like 225. I think that'll be really good.
All right. And then Hunter said, I got Boeing for cheap the other day, but they better start heading back up today. Hopefully their new modifications make them fly. Yeah, I think they will, especially over the next couple months or so. I think this will be a pretty solid play. I think shares would be the best way to go, and they're a solid company, and I'm just excited to see how they do.
Yeah, and a big thing is that those plane problems also, like, that's been going on for like quite a while now. I know that like that was going on a lot like over a year ago even, and that was obviously like hurting Boeing pretty bad, and then COVID came in and just destroyed it. But we just saw a lot of those negative things about those airplanes for a while. There was that one crash, I believe, then there was even a second one. So it was obviously getting pretty scary. It was all, keep in mind, it was all by pilots with like only 500 flight hours and stuff though. And for people who know like flying, like 500 flight hours is like nothing. So, just keep in mind a lot of those were with unexperienced pilots too. But in the end, I think Boeing should do pretty good. And like I said, it was a long time ago. So hopefully those modifications and stuff end up working. Or in the end, I'd like to see him just make a whole new jet. Like why keep going for the wrong stuff? I'd like to see some new futuristic, like big, like Airbus type of jet or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of costs that go into that, but
oh yeah, I'm sure they're developing something though.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, no doubt. And then it looks like right now Disney's pulling back a little bit. It's seeing a lot of mixed movement. Like we have DraftKings popping, we have Boeing popping, Palantir popping, and then Disney's falling off, and a couple other ones. So lots of mixed movement today ahead of the FOMC. Normally these days are pretty choppy, and then Hunter goes EV jet for Boeing, and then it goes to 1K a share. My gosh. In this market, I wouldn't be surprised. Anything, or at least a couple months ago, anything with electric vehicle or anything electric just exploded up, especially those SPACs. And I know there have been a lot of companies that were just so overvalued. Like if we go to QS, Tom, I know we made a video, I think it was in December, about this one. It went from 15 all the way up to 132 just because of that EV hype, or for the most part because of the EV hype, and now it's back down to 24. So it just goes to show you when certain parts of the market are hot, it's just it reminds me of the quote, a rising tide lifts all boats. If you have anything to do with electric vehicles or batteries or whatever, it could just make your stock explode.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big almost like a big sector hype up. We see it happen sometimes with semiconductor stocks. Like for example, Nvidia has been killing it for the past few months. It was dragging a few of those types of stocks up with it too. I know AMD, Micron, and some of those others were getting towards highs before they started selling off, but it was honestly looking pretty good for that sector too. And it's just sometimes that happens where the whole sector goes up. Like Mike said, one big thing I see where that happens quite a bit is the cruise lines and the airlines. It seems like if the airlines have a good day, if American is up 5%, you're almost guaranteed to go check out a Delta chart or a Southwest chart, and they'll be up too. So I could see that happening. And those EV stocks are really volatile. That's why I think sometimes, Mike, tell me what your thoughts are on this, but some stocks like Lucid, you could say some of those other smaller ones that are out there, almost like Blink Charging and some of those other type of EV stocks that are low right now. That's why sometimes they're good to pick up low and just hold for the long term in your account. Now, it's always risky to do that, but that's the main reason, is that you'll eventually see those types of months where you see it just have those massive explosions of the upside.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely risky, like you said, but it's not a bad idea, especially if they're a solid company. Because I know there are a lot of crap companies out there, but if they're a good company, I think it's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, and one, you mentioned a crap company. I just wanted to bring this up for people just so that they just don't go out and start buying all these random EV stocks. Everybody needs to remember Nikola Motors, okay? Nikola was the fame. They're like the famous cheapskates. They were typing up that truck. They showed it going down a hill and everything. It did not even have a motor in it, so it ended up being a big bust for them, and they ended up going down. And this could end up still going up in the longer term, but for right now, and just keep in mind, like with EV stocks, sometimes weird stuff like this goes on where maybe they're like their technology obviously went wrong or something, like in the end, there's always weird catalysts, but just don't go out and just randomly buy a whole bunch because I said that. I think Lucid and a couple others could be good to hold for the longer term with a little bit, but you could get stuck with like a Nikola or something.
Yep. And then Hunter is saying cake is getting mauled. Let's take a look. CAKE, Cheesecake Factory. I didn't look at their earnings, but let's see. So it looks like they were estimated to have like 75 cents a share for their EPS, and they had 80, which is good, but maybe they gave like a bad outlook or something. I didn't really look into it too much.
Yeah, it definitely looks like an earnings move, but man, it's not looking good in the short term, to be honest. Like that big swing below this support of $55 was pretty bad. Then they hit off of it a couple days ago, right before earnings, and now they're tanking down. So definitely a bad resistance level there for them at $55. Look out for support at like 45. But man, Hunter, that's definitely not a good sign in the short term. But it could be good for selling puts maybe in the next like couple days or something as they get down towards those supports. If they could somehow, or if you could somehow sell some puts below $40, I think you'd be so golden.
All right, and then Vicky was asking about DraftKings for day trading. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be pretty good. They had that dip down. Well, they were dipping down a little. Now they're actually breaking back up through $50.50. But I think it could still be good. Now, keep in mind, they're already up 3.88%. Personally, I don't think I'd get right into them right now. I might wait to see some more movement. Like if they dip back down and retest the 50 support, I might like re-get in around there or something like that. But for right now, definitely just treat it as a straight momentum play. If you do want to day trade it, I think it could work, possibly up to like 51 or something. But just keep in mind, like I said, they're up quite a bit. I don't know your thoughts, Mike, but I don't like to trade them generally when they're up this much. If they were only hovering around 50, I think it could still be a good option. But since we're already up through here, I think it might be kind of like a flat stock, or it might start to consolidate for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. It definitely can keep going up. It's just a matter of if you want to risk that, given that it's up almost 4% already. Like, it definitely can go up, but is it worth the risk? Like, you'd be buying into some of these options when they are pretty high. So, for me, it's not worth the risk at this point. I love them for the long term, and I actually kind of even like them for the medium term.
Yeah, the medium term looks pretty solid for them too, and I think that like possibly like for tomorrow or for the next couple days, they could honestly have some great moves. I would almost want it for more of like a swing trade or something like that, to be honest.
Yep. All right, give me 1 second. Let's see. mRNA is still going up. What's going on with this one, Tom?
I was actually just looking at that one on my watch list too. Yeah, they're already up 3%, heading back up. They had those 2 consolidation days where they finally started to look normal, but today they're having that resurgence move back to the upside. They're having more upside movement today than they've had the past couple trading days. So maybe we'll see them come back up and retest like that 360 resistance up there. I know that's quite a ways away though. This stock has been going nuts though, and I've been waiting for it to go down. So hopefully we see more downwards movement with it, but I would not be surprised if it kept going up. But man, just looking at it and just seeing how overextended it is, if we don't see it like hit 360 and head back down, I'll be pretty surprised. I'll be pretty shocked actually. So if this one breaks all-time highs, like I said, this will be a pretty surprising move.
All right, Tom, do you have any last-minute stocks or anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
Man, definitely eyeing up the VXX still. I think that this could still have some potential later on with Powell talking. It is kind of selling off a little bit right now, but it looks like we are holding our ground decently here, which is nice. Powell might come out later and say that they're adjusting their bond buying program. I know that they've been talking a lot lately about possible adjustments with that. a lot of analysts are saying that if those adjustments are made, then that'll kind of forecast rates are going to be rising. So hopefully that we don't see anything like that happen. If he ends up making the market go up, then obviously look at SPY calls, look at QQQ. I think it'll really help the QQQ if he comes out and says that. We might see new all-time highs there. We're only like 2 points away on the QQQ, but really going to be eyeing up VXX and the SPY later on. That's going to be a big deal. DraftKings is looking awesome. Hopefully they can keep running like we just talked about. And then also, I'm looking at some stocks to the downside. I'm actually going to be eyeing up stocks like Caterpillar and possibly stocks like McDonald's to move to the downside. You know, McDonald's is getting pretty overextended here on the daily chart. And if we start to see like Powell come out and make the market fall, I think McDonald's and a couple of these other ones at all-time highs like Target could possibly see some downwards movement here.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. The market's going crazy, and we have that FOMC press conference later on, so definitely be ready for that. But other than that, thanks so much for watching, and have an amazing day.